Double Cleanliness+Male lead crazy criticism of big Boss+Chasing wife Crematorium+Devoting wife to life. In the third year abandoned by Shen Ruyu, Luo Feng found her at the cost of a large sum of money. Abandon the 5-year contract. Become your own canary and play. Yuyu, don't think about leaving me again, otherwise I'll go crazy. I don't know. Yuyu, be good by my side, isn't it? Every time he saw her wanting to leave him, he couldn't control his emotions and kept mocking and insulting her repeatedly. He knew that his possessiveness towards her was becoming increasingly strong, even resorting to the most vicious means. Shen Ruyu didn't understand why Luo Feng detested him to the extreme, but he refused to let her go. Wanting to leave him, always being bullied by him in the dark, bullying and lingering every day, just for her to say she loves him and beg him to stay by her side. The sudden arrival of the child eased their relationship, but he completely forgot all her memories because he saved her. She still remembers Luo Feng saying, "Unless you make me completely forget you, I won't let go." But he had completely forgotten about her, so he let go. When Luo Feng regained his memory, he found that his beloved woman was marrying someone else with her child. He stormed into the wedding scene in anger, preparing to snatch the wedding. "Shen Ruyu, are you going with me on your own, or should I carry you on your back?" She was taken back to the villa by Luo Feng and imprisoned in the dark basement at night. Enduring his constant questioning and forcing her to register for marriage. Chapter 1. Buying out the remaining life of Shen Ruyu. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the dimly cluttered private room, the man's deep and hoarse voice rang out, exhaling in the woman's ear, and the scorching breath spat on her cheeks. "No, don't. Often, don't treat me like this." Smelling the strong scent of strong liquor and tobacco mixed in, he bit deeply into his delicate red lips, and his white jade-like little hand couldn't help but grab his sturdy shoulder. The man just sneered lightly, his big hand pinched her chin, and his red lips were fiercely blocked by him, aggressively demanding sweetness. Shen Ruyu felt the punishment from him and silently vented her anger over the past few years, as if wanting to crush her. The man's well-defined big hand inserted into her jet black hair, pulling at the roots of her hair, with a low and gloomy voice. "Does it hurt? I didn't expect to show up again, Yuyu." Tears of grievance welled up in Do's eyes, and big tears, like pearls, slowly fell out of them. She knew that no matter how much she said, it was useless. The man in front of her was no longer the man from 3 years ago, and she no longer loved her. She just wanted to torture her to the extreme. "Leave me alone. It hurts." Her small hands trembled as she hooked around his neck, taking the initiative to put on her delicate red lips. Her eyes were full of spring water, and she looked at him with confusion. The man didn't speak, just continued his actions, venting all the anger of these years on the woman in front of him. Time and time again, her pleading voice filled the private room, and the ambiguous atmosphere in the room continued to escalate, stimulating him. Early morning. Shen Ruyu heard the sound of metal buttons before slowly opening her eyes. The dazzling sunlight had already shone into her eyes. She immediately reached out and covered her eyes, trying to struggle to get up. Looking at the mess on the ground and the kissing marks on her body, her whole face was blushing with shame. How is she going to get out? "Often, my clothes. I have already had someone deliver it. Put on your clothes and come with me to a place where we can discuss your debt repayment." Wearing a black suit and a precious Earl's limited edition men's watch on his wrist, his pitch-black eyes fell on her face, and his sinister and cold gaze swept over her face. Thinking of his wild beast-like behavior last night, she shrank her body in fear. Her originally thin and weak body made people feel even more weak, and she shook her head. "Often, you already vented last night, you. Is that enough? Look at my injury, do you think it can be repaid in one night? And my child, Shen Ruyu, be fair. I won't let you go in 3 to 5 years. As he finished speaking, Shen Ruyu's body trembled even more, and she even began to dodge his gaze. 1 day ago. Shen Ruyu was wearing a white camisole dress, with her seaweed-like slightly curled long hair draped over her shoulders. Her delicate and charming facial features remained unadorned, still shining brightly. Seeing the man wearing golden glasses sitting on the card seat, she walked towards him. The man's appearance may not be very handsome, but he wears a warm and jade-like smile on his face, like a young boy full of youth, as if it overlaps with the figure in her heart. "Hello, my name is Shen Ruyu," she said with a smile on her face. The man also smiled, his face becoming more gentle and refined, and he said gently, "Hello, my name is Ji Bai." Ji Bai. Is your surname Ji? It's the first time I've heard such a surname. She tilted her head, with a bright smile on her face, and Bai Bai looked at the smile on her face, already lost in thought. Outside the door, a black Pagani parked outside the cafe, staring coldly at everything inside, including Shen Ruyu's smile. So dazzling. Su Shen looked at his gloomy face, his eyes dark and gloomy, and a silent anger had already emanated from him. The air pressure inside the car has become tight, like the next second, he can kill someone, and the target is the woman in the coffee shop. Take me to the company first, pick her up at night, and come find me in the private room. He twisted his thick eyebrows together and suddenly relaxed, his familiar eyes narrowed, and he ordered. Yes, Su Shen nodded. The car immediately left the coffee shop, but Su Shen's eyes never left his face. He completely doesn't understand why Luo always does this. Buying Shen Ruyu with such a large sum of money, a woman who betrayed him, and not only that, but also strangled his child, shouldn't we hate her? Why spend so much money to buy her for the rest of her life? At night, Shen Ruyu finished her date with Ji Bai and returned to the apartment building. A black extended Pagani appeared in front of her, and she looked at the people in the car with suspicion. She hasn't seen a luxury car before, it's just that she hasn't seen the man on the car at all, it's very unfamiliar. "Miss Shen, Mr. Luo wants to see you," Su Shen said to Shen Ruyu. She frowned. Among all the people she knew, there was only one with the surname Luo, but he couldn't be so wealthy, nor could he have such a luxury car. "Sorry, I don't know. Do you know Luo Feng? Mr. Luo is waiting for you. Please get on the car immediately, otherwise the bodyguard in the car will have to take action, and Mr. Luo will be even angrier." Shen Ruyu was about to refuse, but was already scared by Su Shen's words. Is it really Luo Feng? Her eyes looked into the car, and there were indeed two men wearing black suits sitting inside. She swallowed her saliva and got into the car, sitting next to Su Shen. The cramped air pressure inside the car made her very uncomfortable. Her hand tightly grasped her skirt, and her emotions couldn't calm down for a long time before she looked up at Su Shen. Is he okay? Okay. Will people who have died twice get better? Miss Shen, you still care about yourself. Mr. Luo found you not to continue our relationship, but to collect debts. Su Shen's cold words made Shen Ruyu's heart turn to ashes. He still remembers the scene back then, so now he's only looking for her for revenge. She turned her head in silence and looked out of the car, watching as cars flashed past her. Drunken with money, in a private room. Shen Ruyu was led into a state of extravagance by Su Shen. Previously, she would occasionally come with Mu Jia, but the total number of times they would come together was less than 3. She knows more about the consumption here, with the lowest consumption per night reaching up to 300,000, and some even exceeding 1 million. How could Luo Feng have the money to come to such a place? What has he gone through in the past 3 years? In no time, she was led into the private room by Su Shen. Shen Ruyu looked at the figure she had once seen, and she pursed her red lips hard, afraid to look at him. Mr. Luo, didn't you say to take me home tonight? Why did you call a woman again? She's also obsessed with money and money. Of course not, she's even cheaper than you. At least you need money, she. For free. Luo Feng's deep voice rang out, mocking and mocking. Shen Ruyu's face became unusually ugly, and she looked at the man in front of her in disbelief. How has he become so heartless now? The woman looked curiously at Shen Ruyu, with a pair of white jade-like jade hands hanging around Luo Feng's neck, and Luo Feng holding her slender waist with one hand. The black shirt was slightly open, revealing the cold white chest muscles, and the slightly pink collarbone exuded a seductive masculine color. She seemed to be able to see every inch of Luo Feng's skin. Wide shoulders and narrow waist, slim hips and long legs, every inch of the line is so tempting and perfect. Did Mr. Luo get married so young? What a pity, they still want to try new tricks with Mr. Luo. Little fairy, 1 is also trying, and 2 are also trying. It's not bad to let her learn. She's like a piece of wood and doesn't understand any taste at all. Luo Fengkai sneered sharply, and a corner of his eye glanced at her face, waiting to see her reaction. Shen Ruyu listened to his hurtful words, as if her anger had been awakened, and she turned around wanting to leave. I don't think we have much to talk about. Mr. Luo should cherish his current life. Goodbye, no, never see you again. Luo Feng did not stop her from leaving. Su Shen had already stood at the door, with bodyguards guarding outside. Even if she wanted to go out, she couldn't get out at all. Miss Shen, it's better to talk to Mr. Luo before going out. Your father has already sold you to Mr. Luo. Shen Ruyu looked at Su Shen in disbelief and then turned to Luo Feng. Luo Feng, what do you really want to do? It's not easy for you to have everything you have now, can't you live your life well? Luo Feng finally released his hand and patted the woman's buttocks. Go out first, I'll order you tomorrow night. The woman let out a coquettish expression before getting up and glaring fiercely at Shen Ruyu as she passed by. Su Shen, keep watch outside and don't let anyone in. Also, we'll cover the night, he said calmly. Yes, we will renew your subscription immediately. Su Shen turned around and walked out, locking the door of the private room. Shen Ruyu looked at the tightly closed door, panicked and wanting to pull it open, but it seemed to be locked and couldn't be opened at all. Luo Feng suddenly stood up and untied his black shirt, revealing obvious cuts on his wrist. He looked at Shen Ruyu with a smirk. Why don't you come over and hug me? I'm not. We've been apart for 3 years, and we're just strangers. Luo Feng smiled lightly and sniffed the incense in the room. You can't smell it, Pomelo. The aphrodisiac fragrance, you will obediently walk up to me. Shen Ruyu's face turned pale. Before long, her body had already heated up, and her face looked more like a ripe red apple. Luo Feng's familiar gaze swept over her, and he had already sat on the sofa, picked up the strong liquor from the table and started drinking, waiting for her to approach one cup after another. Come if you want, don't force yourself, it's not good for women. Shen Ruyu blushed and gasped for breath. She felt her little hands clenching her fists, and the stimulation from her body was overwhelming. The clear scent penetrated into Luo Feng's breath, and the familiar scent belonged to her. Can't control it anymore. Then come over quickly. After I finish, I still need to talk to you about the next debt repayment issue. He frowned and looked at Shen Ruyu, whose face was already covered in a layer of haze. Shen Ruyu could no longer control her emotions and walked up to him, naturally sitting on his long legs. Luo Feng's well-defined big hand had already pressed against her plump waist, softer and thinner than before. You haven't changed at all, you're even more coquettish than before. Shamed by his merciless words, she could only close her eyes and let tears fall. His big hand forcefully squeezed her chin, his rough fingertips constantly caressing her face, and his thumb mercilessly ravaged her delicate lips. Chapter 2. 5-year contract. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He pinched her waist with one hand and her chin with the other, his eyes becoming even darker and gloomy, with emotions that he couldn't fathom flashing through his eyes. Why betray me? Did I make you unhappy? Or did I have no money, and you can't bear the temptation of money? His gaze suddenly became familiar, and his tone was cold as ice. Shen Ruyu looked at his face and explained that no matter how much, it was useless. She would rather be misunderstood. Who can withstand the temptation of money, can you? The minimum cost for being obsessed with money is 300,000 yuan. Don't you need money? Luo Feng's lips curved with a casual smile as he sneered, this will solve the problem very well. My private room costs 2 million or 300,000 yuan per night. How about sending beggars? Shen Ruyu frowned and looked at him. He was no longer the sunny big boy he used to be. He had become gloomy and cold, and every word he said pierced people's hearts. After being stunned for a few seconds, she chuckled softly and continued, congratulations to Mr. Luo for becoming famous. After tonight, I will definitely not have any interaction with you again. Luo Feng smiled and said coldly, then I wish you a dream come true and that you no longer have any interaction with me, but how hard your mouth is now, it will become more coquettish later. In an instant, Luo Feng lowered his head and kissed her delicate red lips. She felt like she was choked up and couldn't breathe. One hand slammed hard on Luo Feng's chest, and no matter how many times he hit, Luo Feng had no intention of stopping. She was so kissed that she couldn't breathe anymore, and her face was like a red apple that he was willing to let go. She took a deep breath, her red lips parted slightly, and looked angrily at Luo Feng. Crazy. She cursed out loud. Upon hearing her words, Luo Feng no longer wanted to pity her. He rushed towards the woman in front of him like a wild beast, and her affectionate voice filled the private room. Sitting in the car, Luo Feng threw the pre-prepared contract to her and spoke calmly, I've signed it. It's a 5-year contract, and I'll marry you in 5 years. Shen Ruyu picked up the contract in front of her exhausted body and carefully looked at the content, especially when she saw the amount. Her eyes were already wide open, looking at Luo Feng incredulously. 3 billion. Why don't you go grab it? Your father has collected money, and of course you are responsible for repaying it. Why do you think I am someone who enjoys doing loss-making business? By the way, I'll tell you, your household registration book is with me. If you repay the debt, I will naturally repay it to you, otherwise. Shen Ruyu pinched the contract in her hand and reached out to him, give me a pen. Luo Feng handed her the golden pen from his clothes, and as he watched her unscrew the pen cap and sign his name on it, his lips lit up with a smile. Shen Ruyu, you are really a vain woman. I really misread you back then. At first, I didn't expect you to be such a heartless and ruthless person, otherwise I wouldn't have handed myself over to you. Her eyes had turned red, and recalling everything from 3 years ago, she felt like it was a dream, a spring dream. Luo Feng put away the contract and didn't speak anymore. Instead, he let the car drive into his villa in the suburbs. Shen Ruyu just got off the car and looked at the huge estate villa in front of her. She looked at Luo Feng with suspicion. How did he earn all this money in just 3 years, or did he just treat himself like a fool from beginning to end? I have never told her the truth. In the future, you will live here. I will not come back many times, but don't think that if I don't come back, you can steal people outside. I will send someone to monitor your every move. It's best for you to be someone else, otherwise what is the man's name like yesterday? Ji Bai. I will make him lose everything. Before she could speak, she had already been pulled into the villa by Luo Feng. The pain in her arms made her frown and looked at Luo Feng with suspicion. Pain. Let go. Just as he entered the villa, Luo Feng narrowed his sinister eyes and released his big hand. The butler had walked up to Luo Feng and looked at the woman beside him with suspicion. Young master, this is Shen Ruyu. I will live here in the future and let her cook dinner instead of Lin Saw. After finishing speaking, Luo Feng tore off the tie around his neck and threw the custom-made suit jacket onto the nearby sofa, giving instructions to the butler. The butler stared blankly at Shen Ruyu. Since 3 years ago, there has been no woman by the young master's side. Why could she make the young master interested and bring him back? Shen Ruyu was both angry and annoyed by his words. Luo Feng, I still have my job. I cook for you every day, but I can't do it. Besides, you've said it yourself, you don't come back often. If you want to eat, find a woman outside to cook for you. Luo Feng chuckled softly and leaned lazily on the sofa, his knowledgeable eyes fixed on her stubborn little face. Do you mean, let me go find the woman outside and cook for me? He repeated her words in a low voice, with a clear hint of anger in his tone. Shen Ruyu didn't respond, but the meaning was already clear. He smiled and stroked his hair with his big hand. Very well, it seems that you still haven't recognized your position. A woman I bought with money started bargaining with me, right? He sneered coldly at Shen Ruyu, who was no longer worthy of bargaining with him. Shen Ruyu heard his cold words and felt that her whole heart had been gouged out by him, causing pain. She shook her head with a bitter smile. Yes, I am the woman you bought now, but I also have my own job and career. I cannot revolve around you. If you are not happy, terminate your contract with me and send me to the police station. Luo Feng pressed his finger bones against his eyebrows and said in a low voice, Do you think I dare not? Uncle Feng called the police and asked someone to take her to the police station. She will be locked up for 2 days and told to be honest. After finishing his words, the butler looked at Luo Feng incredulously and said, Young master, are you serious? Miss Shen's weak body, how can she bear it? I said to call the police and have someone from the police station come and take her to squat for 2 days. She's not allowed to come out until the time is up. I want to see whose bones are harder. Luo Feng became impatient and stood up, lifting his feet and walking straight upstairs. With a wave of his big hand, Shen Ruyu's thin and weak body couldn't stop retreating, almost falling to the ground. She sat on the cold floor with a pale face. Is he still Luo Feng from 3 years ago? How could he be so cold-blooded and ruthless now? Half an hour later, the police arrived at home and took Shen Ruyu away. Luo Feng stood in the study watching the police drive away. The butler walked into the study with coffee and placed it on the desk. He looked at Luo Feng with a cold face and had too many questions in his heart. Young master, are you old acquaintances with Miss Shen? He tentatively asked Luo Feng. Luo Feng returned to his chair and sat down. He expressionlessly picked up the coffee in front of him, took a sip, and nodded. It's her, you can torture her any way you want in the future, I won't interfere. Luo Feng's tone was cold. He just picked up his cigar in front of him and started smoking, and spitting out a green smoke ring. The entire study was already enveloped in the swirling smoke. The well-known cellist was sent to the police station and quickly became a hot search. Luo Feng just looked coldly at the entries appearing on Weibo, without any movement. Su Shen looked at Luo Feng's serious face and couldn't help but push his glasses on the bridge of his nose, looking at him awkwardly. Mr. Luo, it didn't seem like much to have caused trouble at the police station on the first day. Okay. He was about to speak when Luo Feng's gaze swept him back and he swallowed the next words. Let Yan Li retrieve her tomorrow. Luo Feng's gaze still fell on the tablet, watching the overwhelming reports online. His lips curved with a smile, and he wanted to see how hard her mouth could be. Is Lawyer Ji so idle? Chen Li can also do this. With so many cases to handle, how could Lawyer Ji do such a small thing? Luo Feng closed his eyes and lazily leaned back on the chair. Whatever, after fishing, let her go back and stay well. How is her performance going? As soon as the news came out, most of the tickets for the concert had already been refunded, and no one wanted to attend Miss Shen's concert. Now. It's notorious. He nodded with a satisfied smile, but he wanted to see if she could still use work as a reason to refuse. The next day, at 10 o'clock in the morning. Su Shen took Chen Li to the police station to handle the procedures, and Shen Ruyu was released on bail. She was still wearing that white long dress, and her small hands had already clenched her fists. This is the first time she has been sent to the police station since childhood, and the person who sent her in was the man she once loved deeply. How ridiculous. All the grievances and sorrows have climbed onto her heart. She doesn't understand why a person who used to be so good has become what they are today. Sitting in the car, Su Shen saw all her doubts and spoke calmly. Miss Shen should reflect on herself. Why did she cheat and strangle Mr. Luo's child back then? You always thought he was poor and had no money, so you wanted to find a better and richer man, but little did you know that a golden egg was right in front of you. Shen Ruyu remained silent. She didn't even want to mention the past. No matter what the facts were, it had become a thing of the past. And now this man, she doesn't want to save him at all. 5 years later, she must kick this dog man. Chapter 3. The red flag at home will not fall, and the colored flag outside will flutter. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Returning to the villa, Shen Ruyu was called to the kitchen by the butler, who taught her the rules of the house and told her about Luo Feng's lifestyle habits. The Luo Feng he heard from him was completely different from the Luo Feng he knew, which made her puzzled, but she did not ask further. As expected, she prepared a table of dishes, but Luo Feng did not come back. In the end, she ate herself. The butler told her that not wasting food is a virtue, and she was forced to eat all the food. After dinner, she wearily returned to the bedroom to take a shower, changed into a white bathrobe, went back to bed, clicked on her phone, and read the private message on Weibo. Countless private messages were condemning her for seeking fame and being willing to be taken care of. Yeah, who would believe she owed so much money and was sued by someone at the police station? Luo Feng picked everything clean, and no one knew who the gold owner was, while his name was hung on the internet. At this moment, a phone call came in, and Shen Ruyu picked up the phone and placed it in her ear. Ciao ciao. Yuyu, there's a capital meeting tomorrow night to discuss investment with you. You must show up. I know you don't like these dinners, but now. The voice of Yi Qiao came over the phone, and her words made Shen Ruyu's heart even more chaotic. She could only nod in agreement. Okay, I will go on time. Don't worry, just send me the address. She finished speaking and hung up the phone, lying weakly on the soft bed. Her mind was still filled with the experiences of the past 2 days, and her hand couldn't help but grab onto the bedsheet. Luo Feng. She murmured the name of Luo Feng in her mouth, not knowing when she fell asleep, only knowing that she kept having nightmares in her dreams. Billiards arena. Ji Yanli held a billiard stick in his hand and aimed it at the billiards ball in front of him, then kicked it open. He looked at Luo Feng standing aside with a corner of his eye and said, "Do you really want to treat Shen Ruyu like this? Maybe there was a misunderstanding about what happened back then. Let's ask clearly before we talk." Luo Feng remained silent and continued playing with his billiard stick. How have I been living these 3 years? You know better than anyone else. Do you think I will let her go? Ji Yanli's tall body leaned against the billiards table, hesitating to speak to him. On the first day he brought someone to his side, he immediately went to the police station. If he continued, he didn't know what kind of scandal would happen. Even if he was angry, he shouldn't take himself as a gamble. Luo Feng noticed that he was not speaking, so he turned his head to look at Ji Yanli and said, "Don't worry, I won't hurt myself, it will only hurt her. I heard that most of her concert tickets have been refunded, and her company has started organizing for her. Do you know what it represents?" Ji Yanli finished speaking and just rubbed his chocolate powder on the bat a few times before continuing to play. "I know, keep playing." Ji Yanli could see that he didn't want to mention this matter at all, so he didn't say anything more. He just looked at Luo Feng's face and didn't know what Luo Feng was thinking. Although I thought so much about Shen Ruyu and loved her so much, I had to hurt her in this way. I don't want to ask clearly what happened back then, but I just want to double the pain I suffered and take revenge on the other party. What are all these things? Shen Ruyu and Yi Qiao drove a scooter to the entrance of the restaurant. They only got off the car when Yi Qiao looked at Shen Ruyu. Yuyu, you have never attended such a dinner party before. If the other party moves, you can hold back. Yi Qiao looked at Shen Ruyu with concern, she smiled and nodded, and immediately walked into the restaurant with her. She used to be an award-winning cellist, and someone was willing to invest in her and hold a concert. Now not only has she been taken to the police station, but she has also become a mistress being taken care of by others. There is nothing to be proud of, and some things will be done sooner or later. They were taken to the entrance of the private room by the restaurant waiter. At the moment she opened the door, she was completely stunned and a man who shouldn't have appeared here appeared. Luo Feng leaned against a sweet-looking young girl in his arms, who she recognized as a newly emerging entertainment girl. Men are just like that. No wonder I don't have time to go home, the red flag at home doesn't fall, and the colorful flags are fluttering outside. Pomelo. Yi Qiao saw Shen Ruyu standing still, pulled her hand, and Shen Ruyu walked into the private room. The skinny man beside her helped her open the chair. Miss Shen, sitting here, I didn't expect you to be so beautiful yourself. Shen Ruyu glanced at the man, not like Luo Feng's handsome appearance. His elegant and handsome appearance also caught people's attention. Thank you, I still don't know your surname, sir. Pei Hongxian. The man introduced himself with a gentle smile, and Shen Ruyu smiled before retracting his gaze. His gaze casually glanced at Luo Feng, who didn't even give him an extra look. Often, Miss Shen is so beautiful. If only I were so beautiful. Lin Xingro couldn't help but open her mouth as she looked at Shen Ruyu. Her sparkling eyes turned towards Luo Feng, and her tone was filled with envy. Luo Feng then raised his eyes and looked at Shen Ruyu with a dark and unclear expression. It's just a woman who has been taken care of by the Gold Lord. You're not as clean as me. I just like you, he said. His voice was gentle and indulgent, and Shen Ruyu chuckled to herself, mocking, I didn't see that Mr. Luo is so affectionate, but don't let the red flag at home remain unchanged and the colorful flags outside float. Luo Feng's long eyelashes were half drooping, covering the fierce aura in his eyes. Then there's no need for Miss Shen to worry. Does Miss Shen want to play poker with me? I can't bear a woman like you, afraid of being stabbed by you. Pei Hongxian noticed that Shen Ruyu's face was gradually turning pale. He smiled and spoke out, can I call you Yuyu? I really enjoy watching your concerts, and I've been to every one. Shen Ruyu looked at the man next to her in surprise, but she didn't expect him to be her loyal fan. Really? I didn't expect Mr. Pei to enjoy watching cello performances so much. You can call me Hongxian, can you? Pei Hongxian pleaded loudly. Shen Ruyu nodded before retracting her gaze and meeting Luo Feng's familiar gaze again, before stopping talking to Pei Hongxian. Throughout the dinner, they didn't say anything until it was over. Luo Feng took Lin Xingro and left first. She and Yi Qiao walked out of the restaurant. Pei Hongxian walked out of the restaurant and saw Shen Ruyu and Yi Qiao. He immediately walked up to them. Yuyu, didn't you drive over? Do you need me to drop you off? Pei Hongxian just spoke up, and Shen Ruyu looked at Yi Qiao and said, Hongxian, can you help me take Qiao Qiao home? I'll drive back by myself. Pei Hongxian nodded but did not refuse. He stopped Shen Ruyu as he watched as she was about to get on the car. Can I schedule a meeting with you tomorrow to discuss investment? If you have time. Upon hearing the words, investment, Shen Ruyu clearly showed interest and nodded, okay, see you tomorrow. I'll leave first. Goodbye. She just waved at Pei Hongxian before turning around and walking towards her commuter car. Did Pei Hongxian notice her little cherry, a cellist driving such a small car? He couldn't help but laugh and became increasingly interested in her. It was almost 10 o'clock when she returned to the villa, and Shen Ruyu walked into the villa only to find the butler, Mrs. Lin, and even Yuzhen standing on the side, afraid to speak. Luo Feng drank a little alcohol and returned home drunk. She ignored Luo Feng and walked straight upstairs. Shouldn't a stinky man be with Lin Xingru? What are you doing back here? Returning to the room, she was just about to close the door when someone had already pressed against it. Luo Feng's handmade custom-made leather shoes were stuck at the door. She looked at Luo Feng angrily and let go of her hand. You're not outside with Lin Xingru. Why are you coming back? Your Jiayu flower is making you unhappy. Luo Feng walked into the room and rushed into the bathroom to take a shower. Not long after, he walked out of the bathroom, hot water wetting his hair, and the wet ends were still dripping. There were obvious water droplets on his Adam's apple, and when he saw Shen Ruyu's blushing face, he lifted his feet and walked up to her, pinching Shen Ruyu's cheek. It's really dirty. I drool on the table tonight. I like Pei Hongxian so much, so I should accompany him to the hotel to roll the sheets. What are you doing when you come back? Cold and icy words came from his mouth. His words deeply hurt Shen Ruyu, and the crimson on her face quickly faded. She smiled lightly and took a step back, distancing herself from Luo Feng. You can see it too. I arranged for him to leave tomorrow night. It's too tiring tonight. Mr. Luo changed his clothes and left early. Don't let the beauty wait too long. After finishing speaking, she walked towards the bathroom. Luo Feng extended his hand and pulled her back into his arms, smelling her scent before finally frowning. What's the smell? It's so dirty and cheap. His familiar eyes swept over her, his thin lips parted, and he said the most hurtful words. Shen Ruyu could no longer bear it any longer, and a crisp slap echoed in the room. Luo Feng held her hand motionless and chuckled lightly. Do you deserve to hit me too? Another time, I'll make those around you pay for what you do. Shen Ruyu withdrew her hand and didn't want to look at him again, distancing herself from Luo Feng. Mr. Luo hasn't gone out yet. What serious illness is there? Do you have to come back and change clothes before doing anything? Do you want me to go out? I won't go out yet. The more you hate to see me, the more I stay by your side, wipe myself off, and put on my pajamas. Shen Ruyu bit her red lips and remembered her experiences in the past 2 days. She dared not continue to fight him hard, so she could only pick up a towel to wipe his body. When she was wiping his waist for him, Luo Feng vigorously held down her head. She struggled to get up and wiped the water stains on her face. Luo Feng, are you a pervert? Isn't your attitude towards the gold master good, or do you want to try how I treat my lover? Shen Ruyu couldn't help but curse at Luo Feng. Luo Feng narrowed her dim and unclear eyes slightly, and she immediately calmed down. She threw away the towel in her hand and went to the bathroom to take a shower. Lying in bed, Luo Feng held his phone and kept scrolling through Lin Xingru's videos and short dramas. Shen Ruyu furrowed her brows. Can you go out and brush? Since you like the little beauty so much, why do you go find her? What kind of affectionate persona should I play here, scumbag? Why do you insist on tying her to your side even if you like others? Is there any serious illness? Luo Feng smiled and lowered his head, looking at her impatient face. Are you jealous too? It's rare. She just looked at Luo Feng and sneered, are you jealous? There's no need. 3-legged men are everywhere on the street. Where is your advantage? You know how to do it. Which man doesn't do it? He's handsome. There are a lot of handsome men in the entertainment industry, tall and long legs. Are there many men who are tall and long legs, or are they rich? Is your money mine? What do you do with me? Luo Feng listened to her criticism and gritted his teeth in anger. I didn't expect you to say so well. Why didn't you notice it before? I didn't realize you were a scumbag either. So, this is it. Everyone looks at each other and hates each other. After these 5 years, it's okay. Don't pretend to be deeply in love, you can't pretend. She had just finished speaking, and the phone had already started ringing. Shen Ruyu looked at the name on the screen, which was Ji Bai. She immediately answered the phone and placed it in her ear. Ji Bai, what's up? She spoke softly into the phone. Luo Feng raised his eyebrows and looked at her with a cold expression on his face. Shen Ruyu had no intention of addressing him and was ready to turn over and continue speaking on the phone. Chapter 4. You are a woman who admires vanity. You are listening at novel full.audio. Her body had already been pulled back by Luo Feng, and a pair of big hands pulled open her bathrobe. Shen Ruyu covered her mouth, panicked and wanted to push Luo Feng away. Yuyu, are you okay? Can we go on a date tomorrow? Tomorrow weekend. Okay. I woke up. I'll call you. Shen Ruyu just spoke, and her mouth was already filled with a kitten-like cry. Ji Bai continued to speak anxiously on the other end. Yuyu, are you okay? Did something happen? It's okay, I accidentally bumped into it. I'll call you tomorrow and hang up first. After Shen Ruyu finished speaking, she immediately hung up the phone. She was angry and wanted to push Luo Feng away, but his big hand wrapped around her waist and refused to let go of anything. Luo Feng, are you sick? Don't you see I'm talking on the phone? She complained angrily to Luo Feng. Luo Feng frowned and smiled coldly. Shen Ruyu, you are the lover I take care of now. You're flirting with men in my territory and cursing me for being sick. I'll show you if I'm sick. Shen Ruyu saw a layer of haze on his face, and the temperature of his palm was transmitted to her slender waist, as if her waist was about to be cut by him. Luo Feng, it hurts. Are you going to pinch my waist? What kind of pervert has he become? Surprisingly, she was hurt so much. Do you still have a waist? Isn't it just a pile of bones? Where did you get a waist? Shen Ruyu was so angry that tears streamed down her face. She angrily pushed Luo Feng away and said, if you're so dissatisfied with me, just go find your cute Yuyu flower. Don't waste time on me. I don't want to be touched by you yet. After she finished speaking, Luo Feng didn't want to continue anymore. He got out of bed and went to the bathroom to take a shower, then changed into clothes and slammed the door away. Lying quietly in bed, tears welled up from the corners of her eyes. The relationship 3 years ago was really beautiful, and now it's really hurting. She boasts that she is not an infatuated character, nor is she the ultimate licking dog. She is mercilessly hurt by the person she likes and can continue to love without hesitation. Spending an extra minute with him every day will wear away a little bit of our feelings for him. The next day, at 9 o'clock in the morning, Shen Ruyu was awakened by a burst of phone calls, and she answered the phone in a daze. A man's voice came through the phone. Yuyu, have you woken up from sleep? Shen Ruyu recognized who the owner of the voice was, Pei Hongxian. She excitedly grabbed the phone in her hand and said, is that Hongxian? Pei Hongxian smiled and nodded, it's me. I got the phone number from Yi Qiao. I wonder if you have time today. Have you made an appointment? I have something to do during the day. Is it okay to have dinner at the Case Western restaurant in Wuling Square at 8 p.m.? I'll book a seat. Sure, I'll wait for you tonight, Pei Hongxuan's excited voice came in. Okay. Shen Ruyu is not a young girl. When she heard Pei Hongxuan's voice, she clearly recognized the excitement and joy that belonged to men, which made her feel a bit awkward. But for the sake of her career, she had to go to an appointment. At least Pei Hongxian was not someone like Luo Feng. After calming her thoughts, she put down her phone and got out of bed. In the first half of last night, there were already some stains on the bed. She blushed and walked into the bathroom to wash herself clean. After breaking up with Luo Feng for over 3 years, she never found a man, let alone these things. It's only been 2 days since we reunited, and we've done it 7 or 8 times already. Her sensitivity has also surpassed before. Shen Ruyu left at 11 o'clock and only drove to the Chinese restaurant that he had arranged with Ji Bai at 12 o'clock. Seeing Shen Ruyu, her white face was filled with a shy smile, just like a young boy in college, which made Shen Ruyu unconsciously think of Luo Feng when she first met Ji Bai. She opened the chair and greeted Ji Bai. Ji Bai smiled and poured her a glass of lemon water before placing the menu in front of her. Yuyu, are you okay if you fell last night? Do you want to go to the hospital for a check-up? I'm fine, it's just that there's a big mouse at home. I'm afraid of mice, she said with an awkward smile on her face. Ji Bai nodded clearly and didn't continue to ask. He directly called the waiter to order the dishes. Afterwards, Ji Bai thought of the recent news and curiously asked her, Yuyu, are those online news true? I believe you're not that kind of person, right? Well, I'm not, I just offended some capitalists and was sent to jail for 2 days. Recalling those 2 days of experience, her body was still trembling with fear, unable to control herself. Ji Bai realized that something was wrong with her. Her once rosy face had turned pale from fear, and he knew that the experience of those 2 days must have been very uncomfortable. I'm sorry, when I found out. I tried my best to come back. Ji Bai looked at her and apologized. Shen Ruyu took a sip from her water glass and shook her head at Ji Bai, saying, I'm fine. I've just suffered a bit of physical pain and mental torment, and there's basically nothing wrong. Ji Bai didn't say much anymore, just quietly accompanied her to eat, and he kept picking vegetables into Ji Bai's bowl. Luo Feng was dressed in a sea-going outfit, short clothes and shorts. He sat on the cruise ship, looking down at the photos he had taken. His eyes narrowed slightly, and his face was as cold as ice, as if he was about to explode with anger. I'm really not idle. I went on a date with Ji Bai in the afternoon and Pei Hongxian in the evening. Do you still think I wronged her? Luo Feng threw the photo in front of Ji Yanli. Ji Yanli picked up the photo and looked at the woman in the photo. No matter what, it didn't seem like a material woman who could cheat and love money. She was dressed so plainly that she didn't wear any designer clothes or any luxury items. I still think you made a mistake in your judgment. Don't lose your beloved woman. Luo Feng withdrew his gaze and looked at Su Shen. Go back, tonight I'll go see how she plans to hook up with Pei Hongxian. Ji Yanli looked at Luo Feng inexplicably, how could he become even crazier than himself? Su Shen looked at Ji Yanli, who also nodded and asked him to turn the boat back. He had already released enough, so it was time to go back and rest well. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Shen Ruyu drove wearily to the Case restaurant and only then walked in. She saw Pei Hongxian waving at her and immediately walked over. Hongxian. A smile squeezed out on her face. Pei Hongxian looked at her tired expression and placed the hot soup in front of her. Health-preserving soup, I know you've been exhausted by those rumors, I believe you're not that kind of person. Pei Hongxian's words shook her heart. Did he believe it? They have only known each other for a day. Why do you believe me? I was taken to the police station for 2 days. She suddenly had a sour nose and curiously asked, and Pei Hongxian picked up his glass and took a sip of the wine, then opened it lightly. Which woman who is being taken care of would voluntarily go to the police station? It's just a few soft words to the owner, and things will pass. That's right, if someone takes care of me, I won't be sent to the police station. It's freezing and cold there. I haven't felt that cold and cold for many years. Do you remember the year I studied abroad, when I froze all night in the snow? Before she could finish speaking, 2 figures appeared behind her. Luo Feng heard clearly that night in the snow, where she had been frozen all night. Luo Feng, how come you have time to take Xingro out for dinner? When Pei Hongxian saw Luo Feng and Lin Xingro, he immediately greeted her. Luo Feng walked up to them, pulled open his chair, and sat down. Rumo's black eyes fell on Shen Ruyu's face. What happened on the night in the snow? You haven't finished speaking. Seeing his face, Shen Ruyu put away her nose acid and coldly withdrew her gaze. I don't remember, Mr. Luo, don't always gossip like this. That's my personal matter, she said. Pei Hongxian smiled and immediately summoned a waiter who added 2 pairs of bowls, chopsticks, and wine glasses. Shen Ruyu sat next to Pei Hongxian and sat opposite them. Luo Feng, didn't you go out to sea with Xingro? You'll be back so soon. Pei Hongxian poured him a glass of wine. Luo Feng picked up his wine glass and took a sip of it. He said in a low voice, I went out to play all day and only came back. I didn't expect to meet you all. She's a woman with a wealthy owner, and you like her too. Upon hearing his cold sarcasm, Shen Ruyu lifted her head to look at him, her clear eyes fixed on his pair. Mr. Luo is always reminding me that I have a benefactor. Pei Hongxian looked at the beautiful woman beside him and said, I believe in Yuyu. If she had a wealthy owner, she wouldn't have been running around for a living. Luo Feng's face was unusually ugly, and he didn't like the way Pei Hongxian looked at her, showing a man's desire. Hongxian, I'll go to the bathroom. Shen Ruyu suddenly stood up, finished talking to Pei Hongxian, and walked towards the bathroom. Luo Feng looked at her back and couldn't help but light a cigarette. Hongxian, you should have a better choice. Why choose something so unclean? Pei Hongxian didn't understand what Luo Feng meant, and he was still defending Shen Ruyu. Luo Feng, I think you are a good girl. Sometimes don't look at people with colored glasses. Lin Xingro looked at him without understanding. He rarely targeted women, but every time he saw Shen Ruyu, his disgust was written on his face, as if he really disliked Shen Ruyu. Often, do you know Shen Ruyu? She finally couldn't help but speak. Luo Feng nodded and said in a low voice, she is my friend's ex-girlfriend. She had an affair and even strangled a child who was 3 or 4 months old. She is a twin, and then ran away with another man. Shen Ruyu looked at Luo Feng from a distance, talking about the past, and her emotions suddenly diminished. It's almost over, their feelings are almost worn out. The next second, she sat down in front of Luo Feng, with a cold smile on her lips. It wasn't because he had deceived me back then. Weren't we innocent girls when we were together? What poor kid, let me eat bran and swallow vegetables with him. Am I Wang Baochuan? I like to dig wild vegetables. I can't even feed myself enough. How can I raise 2 children? As for men, he is indeed much stronger than your brother. Luo Feng's face darkened as he chatted, and Pei Hongxian couldn't help but look at Shen Ruyu. In the end, he still didn't want to believe it. You're joking, Yuyu. You're not that kind of person. Shen Ruyu also stood up and said, indeed, I personally went to the hospital to have an abortion and killed my own flesh and blood, but he wasn't responsible. He never told me his identity, and I foolishly went to work to maintain this relationship. If I hadn't left him, I wouldn't have been able to become a cellist. I would have been like Wang Baochuan, guarding his cold kiln. Still making excuses for my vanity, it's been so many years and still hasn't changed. Chapter 5. Must we talk to death? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Luo Feng's hand in his pocket was already tightly clenched, and he wished he could strangle this woman in public. She still has no remorse. Shen Ruyu took a breath and a bright smile appeared on her face. Mr. Luo, I hope you can convey to him that no matter what his current status, wealth, or inheritance status is, I will never turn back to him and beg for his forgiveness. I don't even know who the wrong person is. Pei Hongxian had already smelled a strong smell of gunpowder, and Luo Feng's pitch-black eyes tightly locked onto her. The sinister gaze condensed on her face. As long as you bow down to him, he can help you with your affairs. No need, I can solve my own problems. I don't want to provoke that kind of plague god anymore. He only loves me and doesn't want to reveal his true identity to me, testing my sincerity and experiencing a life of poverty. Isn't that ridiculous? Pei Hongxian realized that the whole thing was not entirely Shen Ruyu's fault, and he immediately spoke up to smooth the situation. This matter is not solely Yuyu's fault, your friend is also at fault. Being vain and materialistic can also be forgiven, but it's all an excuse for her greed and love for money. Luo Feng looked at Shen Ruyu with a gloomy expression. She didn't want to continue discussing the issue with him. She said with a hint of sadness, whatever you think of me, this is between me and him. You outsiders, don't ask. She almost said a complete sentence through her teeth, no longer looking at him, until the waiter brought the food up and she and Pei Hongxian started eating. After a meal, she didn't have a happy time. She bid farewell to Pei Hongxian and drove back, but Pei Hongxian invited Luo Feng to drink alcohol in a luxurious and extravagant manner. In the middle of the night, Shen Ruyu slept soundly, but was awakened by someone. Luo Feng, dressed in black clothes and pants, crawled into the blanket and hugged her tightly. The strong alcohol and tobacco smell penetrated her nostrils. She began to struggle, wanting to shake off the man holding her. Embracing Lin Xingro outside, cursing her so badly, and then returning to seek comfort from her. Let go. She lowered her voice. Shen Ruyu, can't you be a little gentle? Be polite to the Gold Lord, otherwise I'll take Yi Qiao to practice tomorrow. Luo Feng's impatient voice rang out before she stopped fidgeting. Didn't Luo hate me? Why are you pretending to be pitiful? He let go of his hand, placed one hand on his forehead, closed his eyes, and said, you and I are going to stay together for 5 years. Do you want to live a peaceful life, or do you want me to ruin your career? Tell me about the snow with the people around you. Her body was stunned and unwilling to recall, I don't want to say anything. I'll only give you one chance, say it. Luo Feng's eyebrows and eyes sank as he continued to ask. After he finished speaking, Shen Ruyu closed her eyes and said, I stayed in the snow all night before being taken to the hospital. She did not mention the miscarriage. Since she believed she was a gold digger, she did not refute and only wanted to leave him as soon as possible. Luo Feng saw that she still refused to tell the truth, and her handsome face was covered in a layer of cold ice. He lifted the blanket on his body and walked down. Shen Ruyu, I shouldn't have had any illusions about you. Do you want to return to the performance stage? Give it a try. Shen Ruyu bit her red lips tightly, watching the man who slammed the door and left. What is the big problem with someone who hates themselves so much and insists on tormenting each other? Does he not feel any pain when he sees himself? Only the pleasure of tormenting her. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Shen Ruyu had just arrived at the company when Yi Qiao pulled her into the office of Ming Yan. Ming Yan looked at her with a serious expression. Yuyu, have you offended anyone? Why did someone ban you all over the internet? Not to mention holding a concert, there are no investors, and even the venue is unwilling to be rented to you. The words of the underworld banquet reminded her of Luo Feng's words last night. Her small hands clenched her fists tightly, and her fingertips turned white. So, it's impossible for me to hold another concert now, is it? Her gaze fell on Ming Yan's face. Ming Yan nodded, and a faint smile appeared on Shen Ruyu's face. Okay, since he wants to disgust me, I don't want to leave him any mercy. I heard that Lin Xingro participated in a love show. Is there a way? I want to go. Yi Qiao looked at Shen Ruyu suspiciously and said, Yuyu, haven't you always been uninterested in these reality shows? She nodded with a smile and said, I'm not really interested, but Mr. Luo has banned me all over the internet. Of course, I have to disgust his explanation flower, otherwise I'll also be sorry for my years of hard work in my career. She almost gritted her teeth, letting these words pop out from between her teeth. Isn't tormenting each other their way of getting along? 5 years is still a long time, some play. Okay, I'll get in touch, but are you ready for the dating fair and the men? Isn't it just a man? Which man on the variety show would be ugly? Aren't they all handsome guys with tall legs? Ming Yan looked at her face and understood that her eyes flickered, but she didn't say much. Luo Feng and Lin Xingro just walked into the restaurant and immediately welcomed Lin Xingro's fans, holding her photo and requesting a photo. Luo Feng stood quietly on the side, without saying a word, but the face of Shen Ruyu flashed through his mind. Did you not receive any news about women? Why haven't you come to beg him yet? Often, what's wrong with you? Lin Xingro watched him daydream alone and immediately walked up to him, holding onto Luo Feng's arm with a shy smile on her face. It's nothing, I lost my mind when I saw you laughing so happily. He put away his gaze and continued walking towards the position he had set for himself. Luo Feng carefully pulled open the chair for her and let Lin Xingro sit on it, but there was no trace of joy on his face. Often, my birthday is coming up soon. Shouldn't our things be settled now? Lin Xingro held the water cup in her hand and looked coquettishly at Luo Feng, wanting to get a promise from his mouth. After a moment of silence, Luo Feng nodded and said, I will consider. Lin Xingro finally had a smile on her face, happily holding onto his arm and leaning her head against Luo Feng's shoulder. Often, I'm going to shoot a variety show soon. Are you coming to visit the group? If you want me to go, you can go. Who else will go? He rarely pays attention to this kind of variety show, and doesn't know who will go. Some people she doesn't really want to get involved with. Upon hearing his words, Lin Xingro immediately took out her phone and clicked into the program team's Weibo account, carefully watching the promotional photos released. There are Tang Wanwan and Shen Ruyu, as well as Ran Jing. Upon hearing the words Shen Ruyu, his face darkened a bit. She actually went to participate in this kind of variety show, intentionally opposing herself. The next second, a smile appeared on his face, but it was even uglier than crying. Shen Ruyu, a woman who goes to a variety show, is just trying to hook up with a few men. Lin Xingro blinked her bright big eyes and said, Is Hongxian not enough? Luo Feng thought of Pei Hongxian. If it weren't for his quick action, Pei Hongxian would have already invested money in Shen Ruyu. It seems that he really has an interest in Shen Ruyu. Looking at Lin Xingro's face, his hand lightly touched her black hair and said, Xingro, don't learn from her. I don't like that kind of bad behavior. I don't know, I listen to everything from Afeng. Lin Xingro was like a small white flower, obedient to his words. Luo Feng didn't speak much, his mind was full of Shen Ruyu. She even carried him on her back to participate in such a program, which seems to be a lesson to be taken. At night, Su Shen sat in the car and escorted Luo Feng home, asking him awkwardly, Are you really planning to go with Miss Lin? I need an obedient wife, clean and tidy, he said in a low and cold voice, clearly biting his teeth as he spoke about cleanliness. Su Shen shook his head helplessly. Isn't this clearly targeting Shen Ruyu? What about Miss Shen? Will she really let go in 5 years? Luo Feng remained silent, thinking of Shen Ruyu like a thorn stuck in his heart, unable to pull it out and unable to digest it on his own, like a lump in his throat. The car quickly drove into the villa, and Luo Feng got off the car and walked into the villa. Shen Ruyu just finished a table of food and placed it on the dining table. Rare guest, Mr. Luo doesn't need to accompany Jia Yuhua tonight. Why did he remember to come back for dinner? Ignoring Shen Ruyu's ridicule towards him, Luo Feng took off his suit jacket and walked into the restaurant. Looking at the table full of dishes, he remembered the year he was with her. The cooking skills are still equally bad. After speaking, he picked up a pair of chopsticks and stuffed diced chicken into his mouth. I don't need to make spicy dishes in the future. I changed the taste, but Xingro doesn't like it. Shen Ruyu only ate 2 shrimp and sneered, It's really your favorite. When I said I don't eat spicy food, you insisted on me eating it for half a year. Now that Jia Yuhua doesn't like it, she changed her taste. But Mr. Luo, for the sake of Lin Xingro's good, please terminate the contract with me. Don't lose your guard, that's not good. Luo Feng threw his chopsticks and leaned back on his chair, mocking him, "It's not dark yet, why do you like daydreaming so much? Or do you have money to pay me back?" Shen Ruyu didn't respond to his words and continued to speak on her own, "What's so good about liking you? No matter how much Lin Daxing said, there are so many young men chasing after you, but unfortunately, she likes you and won't even let her into a villa. Why don't I move out? Shen Ruyu, are you finished? Are you willing to talk the whole world to death?" In an instant, Shen Ruyu lifted her head and saw the gloomy expression on Luo Feng's face and the anger in her eyes. A dim and unclear gaze fell on her face. She shrugged her shoulders and continued eating without intending to talk to him again. "Come here, I have something to ask you." Luo Feng got up and walked towards the living room, sitting on the sofa. He patted his thigh with one hand, but Shen Ruyu had no intention of getting up. "It's good to say that," she refused. "I asked you to come over, do you believe I can keep you naked all night here?" Luo Feng's cold and violent voice was heard, and Shen Ruyu finally put down her chopsticks and walked up to Luo Feng, sitting on her lap. "Mr. Luo, please speak up. Did you go to the variety show?" Upon hearing his words, Shen Ruyu opened her eyes in surprise and said, "Oh my, why didn't the company tell me, did it? What are the celebrities? Are there male celebrities with tall and long legs?" Luo Feng knew she was intentional, and suddenly his big hand wrapped around her waist, pressing against her perky buttocks. "Shen Ruyu, you want to go to the variety show to date so soon? You haven't forgotten that our contract has just begun." Watching his action, she struggled to get up, which was too fucking ambiguous. "Luo Feng, speak as you please, what are you doing with your hands and feet? Why can't you move around? You're just a commodity now, and besides, where haven't I seen you all over?" As he spoke, his well-defined hands had already unbuttoned the buttons of her bra. She squeezed them dry and felt a refreshing sensation, and the sound of exclamation echoed through the living room. The butler and Mrs. Lin heard the sound and both walked out of the villa to rest in the workers' room behind them. "Luo Feng, please don't. I won't be disobedient in the future." Upon hearing her words, Luo Feng smiled and pinched her chin, approaching his own face. "I used to do this to make you scared, so I will take care of you frequently in the future." Looking at the smirk on his face, desire had already climbed onto his face. She wanted to escape, but was shackled in his arms. "Yuyu, we've done it hundreds of times and still feel so shy. Do you know how to please me?" Shen Ruyu bit her red lips and looked at the man in front of her. "Why do you insist on torturing me when you can go find Lin Xingro? I want her to marry me cleanly. She's not married yet, how can I touch her? You're different, you're just selling it now." His words deeply hurt her heart, and the 3 words he sold made her feel like an ice seller. Chapter 6. My ex-boyfriend, he's a slut. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In an instant, Shen Ruyu's face showed a mocking smile. "Yes, you want women like me. Do you think you're cheap?" Shen Ruyu. Upon hearing her words, Luo Feng roared out loud. Shen Ruyu laughed even louder as she watched him disgust him so much. She held Luo Feng's face in both hands and slowly approached. "Luo Feng, you just can't do without me, you can't do without my body. Why are you saying so many grandiose things?" She angrily bit on Luo Feng's thin lips, and bright red blood overflowed into his mouth. He stripped off her clothes in just a few seconds. "Shen Ruyu, you're really looking for death." In a fit of rage, Luo Feng activated the crazy mode. He hugged Shen Ruyu, tightened her waist, and frantically left kiss marks on her body. Despite Shen Ruyu's resistance, she continued to tease her incessantly, even though she kept begging for mercy. Often. "No. No. Didn't you have a tough mouth just now? What's wrong now? I will die, often, don't." Time passed by bit, and he had no intention of stopping. His actions were extremely violent until he smelled a smell of blood. Luo Feng, you are so cruel. After speaking weakly, she fell into Luo Feng's arms. He immediately carried her upstairs and put her on pajamas. 40 minutes later, Su Shen arrived at home with the doctor, holding a cigarette in his hand and standing in front of the terrace smoking non-stop. The doctor treated Shen Ruyu urgently and then looked up at Luo Feng. Miss Shen has a severe tear in her lower body and needs to go to the hospital for stitches, he said upon hearing her words. Luo Feng withdrew his gaze and said, it's just sewing at home. The doctor looked at Luo Feng in a daze, and after a long time, he slowly spoke up, Mr. Luo, Miss Shen didn't get a painkiller injection, it will hurt to death. It hurts so much, it hurts so much. Who makes her want to tidy up and sew? Su Shen looked at Luo Feng's restless expression, clearly feeling very distressed. However, if he had to say such cold and heartless words, Lawyer Ji was really right. Sooner or later, he would lose his beloved. The doctor dared not disobey his words and took out tools to sew needles for Shen Ruyu. The sound of pain kept ringing in the room, and beads of sweat kept rising from her forehead. Since you hate me so much, why not kill me? Listening to her trembling voice, he clenched his big hand in his pocket, revealing the veins on the back of his hand. He turned his head to look at the weak Shen Ruyu and said, the debt hasn't been paid off, why are you dying? Shen Ruyu smiled lightly and closed her eyes, saying no more words. She only had the lost child in her heart. Fortunately, I didn't come into this world. Fortunately, Mr. Luo, Miss Shen has passed out of consciousness. The doctor only sewed halfway and saw Shen Ruyu unconscious. He immediately looked up at Luo Feng, who then lowered his head to look at her pale face. There was only struggle in his heart, and she was right. He couldn't let go of her, even if it was in this way. He wanted to keep her by his side. Even though she keeps talking back to him every day and doesn't want to let go, this woman doesn't even have him in her heart and refuses to give him a niche position. After a moment of silence, he sat in a chair and finished smoking before turning to the doctor and saying, how long does she need to rest? Half a month, at least half a month without sexual activity. Try to reduce the amount of sexual activity within 1 month. Su Shen, take her back and keep your mouth shut. I don't want to hear any gossip about me and her. The doctor nodded in understanding. Seeing Shen Ruyu's fate, how could she dare to talk nonsense everywhere and not want to die? 2 days after Shen Ruyu woke up, she propped up her body and felt a noticeable pain in her lower body. She sat up carefully and leaned against the bed. The current Luo Feng is simply abnormal, with unpredictable weather. He just humiliated his Jiu flower and made her look like this. Stitching her without even anesthesia is really despicable. Is he trying to make her suffer to death? At this moment, Luo Feng walked in from outside, dressed in grey sportswear, and looked at her coldly. Get up, get dressed, and go play golf with me. Upon hearing his words, Shen Ruyu's face was filled with hatred and she angrily rebuked, Luo Feng, I'm injured now. Do you still want me to play golf? Luo Feng looked at her whole body expressionlessly and said coldly, hurt. Where did you get hurt? When cursing, you're full of anger. Get up and change clothes, don't think you can't rely on it. Don't you want to meet a wealthy man? Shen Ruyu's face was full of anger, and she stood up reluctantly. Just as she was about to enter the wardrobe, Luo Feng had already grabbed her wrist. Change my clothes first. His big hand clasped the back of her head and exhaled vaguely towards her face. You don't have long hands. She struggled to push him away. Have you ever seen a gold owner dress themselves? Or would you like to do it again, constantly ending up? Luo Feng deliberately lowered his head to look under her. Shen Ruyu remembered the pain now and immediately helped him take off his clothes. Just as he was about to enter the wardrobe to get his jersey, he pulled him back and said, Do you dare to speak to me loudly in the future? I dare not, whatever you say, let go of me, she muttered softly. Luo Feng finally let go of her hand and took out the jersey from the wardrobe to put it on for him. She also put on women's clothing herself, but the tearing sensation in her lower body made her very uncomfortable. "Often, I'm not feeling well, really." She spoke to Luo Feng with a pale face, but her voice sounded like a coquettish kitten, stimulating Luo Feng's desire. The next second, he held her in his arms and walked out of the room. Shen Ruyu closed her mouth. He didn't care about her now. How could he let her go because she was not feeling well? Sitting in the car, he didn't let go either, just holding her in his arms and keeping his big hand on her lower abdomen. "Don't make me angry next time, otherwise the consequences will be even worse than this time," Luo Feng suddenly spoke. She lowered her head and looked at Luo Feng. Even if it didn't make him angry, wouldn't he still torture herself to death? Stupid for a long time, the words I wanted to say still stuck in my throat and couldn't be spoken. An hour later, they arrived at the sports arena, where Luo Feng and Shen Ruyu walked into the arena and met Pei Hongxian. He looked at them in surprise, perhaps not expecting Luo Feng to come with Shen Ruyu to the golf course. "Yuyu, how could you?" Luo Feng put one hand into his pocket and turned to look at Shen Ruyu, waiting for her explanation. Shen Ruyu just smiled lightly and said, "I came to see my ex-boyfriend, so I came with him." "Can I see it then?" Only then did he know what kind of man Yuyu likes. Jealousy surged in his heart, and Luo Feng nodded. "Sure, Yubai and Qingchuan happen to be here, and Yanli is also coming soon," he said, "which is your ex-boyfriend, Song Yuebai or Qiao Qingchuan? Or Ji Yanli?" Pei Hongxian only then asked, and Shen Ruyu pursed her red lips hard. Did Luo Feng intentionally throw trouble at her? "It's Song Yuebai." At first glance, he looks like a literary scumbag, using only his lower body to think. "You describe it as Qiao Qingchuan, Yuyu." Pei Hongxian looked at Luo Feng with suspicion. Luo Feng didn't want to talk to them anymore and walked straight to the field. The caddy helped him carry the club onto the car. Quickly, they walked into the stadium and saw Song Chaobai and Qiao Qingchuan's laughter ringing incessantly, immediately looking towards them. Luo Feng greeted them, and Song Yuebai only noticed that his face turned pale. He turned his head and looked into the distance, where Shen Ruyu was being entangled by Pei Hongxian. He couldn't help but feel a little curious in his heart. "Haven't you figured it out yet?" "I'm not sure what's going on, she's just a vain woman." "Don't talk nonsense," even Wan Wan said no. Song Yuebai was too lazy to pay attention to him, so he turned around and walked to Shen Ruyu, ready to greet him with a smile. Pei Hongxian stood up first, reached out his hand to greet Song Yuebai. "Mr. Song, I didn't expect you to be Yuyo's ex-boyfriend. I hope you won't entangle Yuyo in the future." He looked at Pei Hongxian with a bewildered expression on his face. Shen Ruyu was already in pain and sweating on her forehead, looking at him. "Song Yuebai, I hurt." Shen Ruyu mentioned grabbing Song Chaobai's arm, and he looked down at her skirt. Seeing the bright red blood, he immediately picked up Shen Ruyu. "Don't be afraid, I'll take you to the hospital." "How did I do it?" It hurts." She couldn't squeeze out a word for a while, and Song Chaobai left Luo Feng and walked outside. Qiao Qingchuan looked at his dark face and couldn't help but shake his head. "Are you crazy? To torture her, disregarding her life and death?" Luo Feng remained silent and clenched the club in his hand, but no matter how many balls he played, he did not enter the hole, either shifting left or right. In the following time, he had no idea how he was going until evening when he went to the hospital to see Shen Ruyu. Shen Ruyu just opened her eyes and saw Luo Feng's dark face. She turned her face away and didn't look at him. "The doctor said I won't be able to do it for half a month. You can rest assured to go find your liver, no one will touch me." Her tone was cold, with a hint of impatience. He clenched his hand on his lap and remained silent. Shen Ruyu didn't hear his voice before turning her head to look at him. He still had a calm and dark face, with a pair of dark eyes fixed on her, before finally speaking up, quit the variety show. Your current health is not suitable to participate. You can give up. To be honest, I'm not going to make myself famous, nor to find a man, but to disgust you. Disgusting you as a meme flower. She met Luo Feng's eyes, and Luo Feng's narrowed gaze fell on her face. To disgust me. I don't participate, why do you disgust me? That's disgusting for your explanatory flower. Don't you love her and love her? I just want her to make a fool of herself. Luo Feng frowned and looked at her, which made him nauseous. Shen Ruyu, you're injured in your lower body, not your brain. She's making a fool of herself, and I can't afford to change a woman. Shen Ruyu looked at Luo Feng's face, and complex emotions flashed through her face. What a ruthless man. That's right, you can't really love anyone. I don't even love her, I still love her. Luo Feng was completely angered by her, and his big hand tightly squeezed her shoulder. Shen Ruyu, touch your conscience. Who abandoned whom first? Chapter 7. Ex-girlfriend going to smash the scene. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the following days, Luo Feng never went to the ward again. On the 5th day, Ning Xuewei had just returned from a business trip and came to the hospital to visit her as soon as possible. Pomelo. Xuewei, you're here. I'm fine, I'm about to be discharged. She propped up her body, with an awkward smile on her face. Ning Xuewei sat by the hospital bed and held her hand tightly. Why don't you tell him the truth? Let him torture you. Maybe I wanted to tell him before, but now I don't want to at all. I hope he lets go soon and completely cuts ties with him. Ning Xuewei understood her thoughts and didn't say anything more. If she had such a boyfriend, she would have hoped he would let her go. 2 days later, Yi Qiao went to the hospital to handle her discharge procedures, but when she was discharged, she met Su Shen, who snatched a change of clothes from Yi Qiao's hand. Miss Shen, have you forgotten Mr. Luo's words? You're not allowed to participate in the variety show. Su Shen increased his volume. Shen Ruyu looked at Su Shen and sneered, why, are you afraid that I will deal with his little heart? He has already banned me. What's wrong with dealing with his little heart? He's worried about your health, why do you have to misinterpret his kindness? Su Shen didn't understand why. Do you want this kind of goodwill to send you? If he's kind, he'll block my career. If he's kind, he'll take me to the hospital. Forget it, I really don't want to mention him. Yi Qiao watched as Su Shen's face grew darker and darker, only then did she recognize the meaning between them. No matter how foolish she was, she wouldn't be so foolish. Yuyu, is your benefactor. Mr. Luo. No, he's not my benefactor, he's my enemy. Su Shen shook his head helplessly and looked at Shen Ruyu's hatred towards Luo Feng. Do you know that Luo always wanted to keep you by his side? I don't want to know, isn't he just using those dirty methods? After a moment of silence, Su Shen looked at her and said, if you want to have a better life these past few years, treat Mr. Luo better, and he won't be holding a gun against you. Shen Ruyu fell silent. She didn't want to be taken to the hospital every time, but he hated her so much. Would he not mock her and treat her well just because she treated him well? After thinking for a while, she still shook her head and didn't believe Su Shen's words. After the meeting, Ji Yanli and Luo Feng returned to his office together. Looking at his gloomy face, Ji Yanli coughed and placed one hand on his forehead. This matter will eventually reach Shen Ruyu's ears, he reminded Luo Feng. Luo Feng looked up at him, his eyebrows and eyes darkened a bit, and said casually, she doesn't care about me anymore. She's counting the days and preparing to leave me. Can't you move her in these years and make her fall in love with you again? Do you insist on torturing her and making her crazy about wanting to leave you? I can't do it, she has already trampled on my sincerity once. Why do I still have to warm my face and stick it to her cold buttocks? He clenched his hand on the table and remembered everything from the past. His heart was twisted like a knife, unable to forgive that woman. Ji Yanli shook his head, stubbornly like a cow, regretting it sooner or later. Shen Ruyu only returned to the villa and sat on the sofa looking at her phone when she saw Lin Xingro shouting the news of Luo Feng from across the air. She looked at the screen with a blank face and her hands were still trembling. After a long pause, she finally calmed down and didn't want to see any more news about them. No wonder she hasn't seen anyone for a few days. One end took her to the hospital, while the other end was as crooked as Lin Xingro. The butler watched her in a daze in the living room, knowing that he had seen news online, and then walked up to her, urging her to go to the kitchen. "Miss Shen, young master is coming back for dinner tonight. It's time for you to cook," he reminded Shen Ruyu. Shen Ruyu's face turned pale as death. She calmly put down her phone and walked to the kitchen to start preparing dinner. Looking at the dishes in the pot, she frantically added salt to the dishes. The butler watched her operation and couldn't help but swallow her saliva. Who was this trying to kill with salt? After 2 hours, the food was finally ready, and she only brought it to the table with her front foot, while Luo Feng had already walked in from outside with her back foot. Watching her sit quietly in the dining room drinking soup, he handed his coat to the butler and strode up to her, then pulled out the chair and sat down. "How is your physical condition?" She didn't expect Luo Feng to suddenly care about her, so she looked up at him and continued drinking soup. "I haven't congratulated you yet. When will you get engaged?" "I will definitely be there." "What's your ex-girlfriend going to do? Smash the scene?" he said angrily. She let out a soft snort. It was so precious that Lin Xingro was afraid that she would attend the engagement banquet. She was indeed someone on the tip of her heart. Seeing that she no longer retorted, Luo Feng picked up his chopsticks, picked up the vegetables, and put them in his mouth. His face immediately turned unusually ugly, and he spat out everything in his mouth. "Shen Ruyu. How much salt did you add?" "Half a pot, Miss Lin, cool and cute. You should be very used to it. Why don't you like it? Then try this. Fried shrimps with Longjing tea, half a pot of sugar." Shen Ruyu smiles and puts fried shrimps with Longjing tea in front of him. He looks at Luo Feng innocently. Luo Feng is already angry and his forehead is swollen with blue veins. "If you have anything to say directly, don't take the vegetables and vent your anger on me." "There's nothing to say, I just hope Mr. Luo can spare me with kindness." The topic returned to the contract, and Luo Feng lazily leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "It's impossible. I said 5 years is just 5 years. Be good, and I even let you go out. If you continue to do this, you'll stay at home and don't go anywhere." Biting her red lips, she looked angrily at the man in front of her and said, "Luo Feng, you already have other women. Why are you still clinging to me and torturing me for fun?" "Fun, why should I suffer from the torment of this relationship, don't you? Am I the kind of person who likes to suffer losses?" She closed her eyes, and the pain beneath her made her unwilling to argue with Luo Feng. She stood up and walked straight upstairs, but when she passed him, Luo Feng grabbed her hand and said, "Are you so unwilling to see me? What do you think? I'd rather you buy me a dog to play with than see you." Luo Feng's big hand tightly clenched her slender wrist, with a gloomy and cold tone. "When did your mouth become sharp and sharp?" Looking down at the sitting man, recalling every moment of the past, she sniffed and averted her gaze. "Do you care?" "Since I don't care, my sharp teeth and gentle mouth seem to have nothing to do with you. Tell me, have you ever found a man in the past 3 years? His jaw line was tight, and his black eyes, like ink, tightly locked her face. Shen Ruyu smiled and lowered her eyebrows, shaking her head in self-deprecation. "Yes, I have met a few times, kissed each other a few times, and even had sex." Listening to her full mouth of the train, Luo Feng's anger had reached its peak in his heart. His big hand pinched her cheek with abnormal force, causing her to feel pain. Su Shen asked you to coax me, is that how you coax me? Is it because your body is better and you want to go in and lie down? Upon hearing his words and recalling her experience that night, she had a reaction and instinctively shook her head, I don't want to. Her body had been severely imprisoned by Luo Feng, and his head leaned against her chest. Don't go to the variety show, I'll take you to the auction, buy you jewelry, and take you on a cruise ship to sea. The attitude that I originally wanted to soften was inspired by his statement not to participate in variety shows. Is it for Lin Xingro again? Are you afraid that I will harass your careful liver? Luo Feng, while you are showing kindness to me, you are also worried that your careful liver will be wronged. Don't you contradict yourself? Luo Feng looked at the anger on her face, and his sharp gaze fell on her face. Do you think I won't let you participate in the variety show because of Xingro? Isn't that right? Lin Xingro shouted from afar, indicating that your wedding date is approaching. Isn't Mr. Luo afraid that I might cause trouble, so he changed his mind and didn't let me participate in the variety show? Luo Feng's eyes were sinister, and his anger had already burned on his face. Shen Ruyu, why do you compare yourself to Lin Xingro, just because of your skinny physique? Or is it because of your disfigured face? She slapped Luo Feng angrily, and tears couldn't hold back anymore. Since you despise me so much, why did you leave me by your side to torture me? He remained silent, why? Not because I can't forget or put it down. Yu wiped her tears with her little hand, pulled away from him, turned around, and walked upstairs, leaving Luo Feng alone. Luo Feng got up and returned to the sofa in the living room, picked up the cigarette from the table and started smoking. Smoke came out of his mouth. Deep eyes drooped, unable to see through what he was thinking. The butler brewed a cup of coffee and walked up to him, putting down the coffee in his hand. Young master, I think you should explain it clearly to Miss Shen, and Miss Lin should explain it as soon as possible. If the misunderstanding is too deep, it's not easy to explain. Do you think Shen Ruyu still wants to explain things to me clearly? When I asked her about it, she refused to say a word of truth and was full of lies. The butler has lived for such a long time, has never seen anything before, and knows their current mentality well. You're not as Miss Lin. If you explain it clearly, maybe. I'm tired, I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. After putting out the cigarette, he resolutely walked upstairs, not wanting to continue discussing this topic at all. Chapter 8. You are also the man I have used before, why don't you die? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The next morning, in the morning. Shen Ruyu had just packed her luggage and planned to go out, only to find that the villa entrance was surrounded by bodyguards. She frowned and looked at the butler. Get out of the way, she scolded the butler angrily. The butler shook his head and said, Miss Shen, the young master said you are not allowed to go out these days. Shen Ruyu looked at him with an unpleasant expression, her heart aching faintly. He didn't even let me out of the door to avoid making Lin Xingro sad. The butler looked at the tears in her eyes, wanting to explain clearly, but he didn't dare to speak too much. Miss Shen, don't make the young master angry. Have you forgotten what happened before? The butler's reminder reminded her of her hospital experience, and her body couldn't help but tremble. Whatever he wants, whatever. After roaring, Shen Ruyu's phone rang. She immediately picked up the phone and placed it in her ear. Qiao Qiao. She spoke. Yuyu, why haven't you arrived at the airport yet? We're running out of time and must be there before 5 p.m. this afternoon. Upon hearing Yi Qiao's anxious voice, she clenched the phone and said, Luo Feng should have already pushed the variety show. I am locked up in a villa with dedicated guards and cannot leave. That male dog has imprisoned me for Lin Xingro. Shen Ruyu deliberately raised the volume to make the butler hear clearly, but he shook his head at Shen Ruyu with an ugly expression. Before Shen Ruyu could react, her tall figure had already stood at the door, and her familiar eyes turned to her. Male dog. That's how you call you the Gold Lord. Do you want to squat at the police station again? Yuyu, what is he talking about? Did he take you to the police station? A worried voice came from Yi Qiao, who comforted her and said, Qiao Qiao, I'm fine. I'll come find you when I go out. Although she knew he was cold and thin, when she heard him speak, her heart still hurt, as if he was constantly gouging out the wound with a knife. Tears couldn't hold back and flowed out anymore. She looked at Luo Feng in disappointment and said, Luo Feng, why don't you just give me a good time? Luo Feng's face was gloomy and he looked at her coldly. I've told you before, I can satisfy you with anything you want if you don't go to the variety show. She looked at Luo Feng and wanted to get closer. She took 2 steps back and distanced herself from him. 5 years will pass quickly. I can get through it, I can. Her eyes were empty, she looked at the man in front of her coldly, away from him, so that she wouldn't die early. Luo Feng's face was gloomy, his eyes were gloomy with bloodstains, and he was terrifying. Do you think that with your attitude, you can successfully escape from my hands in 5 years? She looked at Luo Feng inexplicably and said, 5 years and 5 years, are you not planning to get married? I have been living here all this time, and you deserve Lin Xingro. Isn't she worth it better? She must live where you've lived before. Luo Feng snorted lightly. She also laughed along and said, you're also the man I've used before. Why don't you die? Forget it. She finished speaking when the phone rang again. She immediately picked up the phone and placed it in her ear. Hello. Her tone was somewhat angry. Yuyu is me, I want to talk to you about the concert. Do you have time? Pei Hongshuan's voice came over the phone. Upon hearing the concert, Shen Ruyu's face finally smiled again. Really? Have you found the venue? Hongxian, I don't know how to thank you, but I don't have time these days. Can next week be okay? After she finished speaking, the phone had already been snatched away by Luo Feng. He hung up the phone, and a sinister gaze fell on her face. I've only known Pei Hongxian for a few days, so close. Why did he help you? What did you promise him? Looking at his anxious expression, Shen Ruyu suddenly laughed and said, what's wrong? Are you afraid? Are you afraid that I'll be chased away? Didn't you say I'm cheap? I'll show you cheap. Luo Feng pinched her cheek and kissed her lips fiercely, almost biting her. The shackles of her big hands prevented her from pushing away the man in front of her. The butler and bodyguard both averted their gaze and dared not continue to look. Who knew what the young master would do to them in the next second? Luo Feng clenched the hand placed on her waist, vigorously pinching the thin flesh around her waist, and finally laughed. Yuyu, why not? Give me 2 more children and I'll let you go. Upon hearing his devilish voice, she angrily slapped Luo Feng and said, you devil, do you want my child to be called Lin Xingrou's mother? I won't do it. I won't do it. Tears streamed out uncontrollably, and she didn't expect the man she had always loved to become like this. The beauty of the past has vanished completely. Luo Feng, how could you bully me like this? Why? I didn't want to lose my child back then. I was forced. I love you so much. So much. She squatted on the ground crying silently, and Luo Feng looked down at the sound of crying. The sense of fragmentation made him have the idea of bullying her. The butler saw that he didn't move, so he walked up to Shen Ruyu and helped her up from the ground. Miss Shen, stop crying. The young master just wants to have your child, Miss Lin. Uncle Feng, you're too talkative. How could she give me a child? The dirty body should be left for Pei Hongxian. Luo Feng looked angrily at the butler, his sinister gaze falling on the faces of the butler and Shen Ruyu. Shen Ruyu chuckled lightly and stared at the man she disliked in front of her. Okay, I don't deserve it, do I? Your Lin Xingrou deserves it, and I'll tell everyone that I'm your Luo Feng's woman. I'll see who Lin Xingrou's troublemaker is. That's great, I'm afraid you're hiding and not daring to say anything. Luo Feng shrugged his shoulders and looked at her white and crying face. Shen Ruyu clenched his fists and bit the swollen red lips he had kissed. Luo Feng, don't force me, let Lin Xingro know. Can you still get engaged to her? Can you still get married? Your interpretation will hate you for a lifetime. Luo Feng lowered his head and approached her small face, the smile on his lips becoming even more pronounced. I've already said that I can change women at any time. I just want a clean and obedient woman. If you're obedient and obedient, I can change to you. It's not something she has to do. Scumbag pushing away Luo Feng, she carried her suitcase and walked into the villa. Luo Feng's face immediately became cold, and Yin Wu covered his entire face. He had already expressed himself so clearly, but she still couldn't understand. Stupid woman. Lin Xingro arrived at the villa and realized that Shen Ruyu was missing from the guests. She couldn't help but frown and looked at the agent beside her. Ingjie, why did Shen Ruyu withdraw from the competition? You go and inquire. Her heart was inexplicably flustered. Renjiying saw her for the first time caring so much about someone, a notorious woman. She handed her the water glass in her hand. Xingro, what's wrong with you? I've seen you absent-minded these past few days, isn't Luo saying he's going to marry you? Lin Xingro shook her head impatiently and muttered, he didn't agree, he just thought about it. I've never seen him hate a woman so much before, I suspect. I suspect that the white moonlight that he has been unable to forget in his heart is. Renjiying also guessed something, and before she could finish speaking, Lin Xingro nodded. As long as Shen Ruyu is around, his gaze cannot be moved, he keeps following her, saying malicious words, but his gaze never moves away. In the past few days, she has been increasingly worried and afraid that Shen Ruyu will one day snatch Luo Feng. She has been working hard for more than 2 years, and everything has become nothing. Renjiying looked at the worry on her face and immediately grabbed her hand. Xingro, then you need to find a way. At least you've been a woman of Mr. Luo for 2 years now. How can he resist it? Lin Xingro's little hand clenched her fist. It had been 2 years, and no matter how revealing or tempting she was, he remained indifferent to himself. She even suspected that he couldn't do it at one point, but now it seems that he doesn't want to. Xingro, why don't I go get you some medicine? You let Mr. Luo take it, maybe. Be careful, Miss Ing. I don't want any surprises. After Lin Xingro finished speaking, Renjiying smiled and touched her hair to soothe her, don't worry about my affairs. Mr. Luo will definitely not escape your palm this time. Shen Ruyu was locked up at home for 2 days, and on the 3rd day, he was taken by Luo Feng to a hot spring resort in the suburbs. As soon as she got off the car, she saw a warm and jade-like man standing at the entrance of the resort waiting for them. She looked at him curiously. Chapter 9. The Little Waist Twists Well. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Often, is this sister.in.law? He Jingshi looked curiously at Shen Ruyu. Luo Feng lowered his head and glanced at Shen Ruyu. He wrapped his hand around her waist and nodded at He Jingshi. Well, she just returned from the hospital and hasn't recovered yet. Luo Feng casually spoke about her hospitalization, but Shen Ruyu angrily patted his hand away. It seems like you caused me to be hospitalized. Don't pick yourself so clean. Luo Feng looked at her chattering little mouth, his eyebrows and eyes darkened, and he continued to look at He Jingshi. Are they here? When will the meeting start? Tomorrow, I'll take you to rest first. I read the news online and thought you and Lin Xingro were getting engaged. After He Jingshi finished speaking, Shen Ruyu's body trembled, wanting to stay away from Luo Feng, but he hugged her even tighter. Watching his acquiescence, Shen Ruyu began to mock her innocence, thinking he would deny it. After all, when this man called her sister.in.law just now, he didn't deny it. Jingshi also noticed Shen Ruyu's pale face and smiled lightly. Sister-in-law, you and Ah Feng have changed clothes. You can go to the hot spring to take a bath first. Tomorrow night's banquet will be with acquaintances, and there will be no outsiders present. You can rest assured. Her words left Shen Ruyu puzzled, so wasn't it Luo Feng who was worried? Does their relationship have any impact on her? Her career is gone, is there anything else she can lose? What if things are exposed? At most, if she were accused of being a mistress, she wouldn't starve to death. They returned to the room, and Luo Feng, in front of her, took off his clothes, changed into a hot spring suit, and looked at her. Are you not changing clothes or do you want me to do it for you? She reluctantly took off her clothes and changed into a hot spring suit. Luo Feng looked at her obedient appearance before walking behind her and holding her in his arms, lifting her hem with his big hand. Yuyu, stay by my side obediently. As long as you stay obediently for these 5 years, I promise to let you go. She pursed her lips and looked at Luo Feng. His sudden tenderness left her at a loss, and she was more worried that he was trying to torture him again. She nodded and said, okay. As if he had received a satisfactory answer, he lowered his head and kissed her red lips. He was like a longing beast, making it impossible for her to break free. In an instant, she seemed to have been kissed by him to the point where she was about to die. Only then did he release his hand and she sucked in her breath, her eyes filled with desire as she looked at Luo Feng. Often. The soft voice made Luo Feng's big hand press against her face, and his fingers vigorously caressed her red lips, as if trying to crush them. Shen Ruyu couldn't see through him. His temper was unpredictable, always teasing herself from time to time, making her think he couldn't let her go, but in fact, it wasn't. It's time to go soak in the hot spring, she interrupted the ambiguous moment. Luo Feng's back caught a chill, he let go of his hand, lifted his long legs, and walked towards the outside. Looking at his back, her heart grew colder and colder. After all, she didn't love her, but why did she have to be surrounded by him? Lost, they followed behind Luo Feng and walked towards the hot spring pool. They went to the men and women's bathhouse, only the two of them. Soaking in hot water, Shen Ruyu felt comfortable all over her body, and the stuffiness of the past 2 days seemed to be swept away. Suddenly, a big face appeared in front of her, and he lowered his head and approached Shen Ruyu. Yuyu, it's been a month now. He looked at Shen Ruyu's face and muttered in a rough voice. Shen Ruyu looked at him inexplicably, as he had already approached, his body tightly pressed against hers, and low gasping hot air was exhaling on her face. What? Luo Feng, what do you want to do? I'm not good yet, the doctor said. The doctor said it's not possible within half a month, a small amount within a month. It's already been a month, how long do you want me to keep it? His well-defined big hand smoothed her hair in front of her forehead and approached with a smile, as if they had returned to the first night when he smiled so gently at her. Luo Feng, don't laugh at me like that. You have tarnished the Ah Feng in my heart. Hearing that she still had himself in her heart, he couldn't control his emotions and hugged her slender waist tightly, getting close to himself. Why don't you treat me like him? I'm just one person. He won't hurt me, you will. Aren't you enough to hurt me? For that piece of paper, I'll be played with by you for 5 years. Why are you doing this to me? Her tears unconsciously flowed down, leaving only grievances. With her back facing the moonlight, she couldn't see Luo Feng's expression clearly, and could only let his big hand wipe away her tears, escalating their ambiguity. Only by holding on to that piece of paper can you, Shen Ruyu, be obedient and obedient. I know you very well and understand you very well. He easily took off her clothes and fiercely demanded her again and again under the moonlight, venting his emotions for the past month. Early in the morning, Luo Feng went to talk about business and continued to sleep alone in the room until she woke up in the afternoon. The memory of last night lingered in her mind, as he repeatedly said he loved her. She couldn't distinguish whether he was looking at her or Lin Xingro. Her heart was only filled with grievances. Even though she had Lin Xingro in her heart, she insisted on tormenting her. The repeated possession was just Lin Xingro's substitute. Luo Feng, our relationship doesn't deserve you to treat me better. I took a sniff and was about to get up and take a shower to clean my body when I received a call from Ji Bai. She picked up the phone in her hand and placed it in her ear. Ji Bai. Yuyu, have you ever cried? Your voice sounds strange. Ji Bai's worried voice came from the phone, and she finally squeezed out a smile and cleared her throat. No, I caught a cold and my throat is a bit uncomfortable. It will get better soon. She casually lied. That's good, I'm currently on a business trip and will be back soon. What gift do you want? I'll buy it for you. Upon hearing his words, Shen Ruyu shook her head and said, No need, we are just friends now and cannot accept valuable gifts. Yuyu, haven't you considered accepting me yet? I'm serious. Ji Bai, I'm not as good as you imagine. I've had a boyfriend before, and I've had an abortion. She had just finished speaking, and a figure had already leaned against the door. Listening to her words, her small hand clenched the phone. Yuyu, I don't mind. I really don't mind. I'm glad to get to know you. Can you give me a chance to talk to you when I come back? Ji Bai finished speaking and had already hung up the phone. Her eyebrows furrowed and she pinched the phone in her hand. Luo Feng walked into the room and pulled off the tie around his neck. Come and change my clothes. I'm going to a dinner party tonight, so you shouldn't forget, he said. She put down her phone and hurriedly got out of bed. She walked up to him and unbuttoned his shirt, revealing his cold white abdominal and chest muscles, as well as his tight waistline. Often, last night. Not today. She hesitated as her body was completely overdrawn. If she continued to indulge, she would have to go to the hospital again. His big hand wrapped around her waist, and he smiled as he lowered his head. Why not? You want to defend yourself for him like a jade. How do you plan to refuse me in 5 years? Her smooth body tinged his eyes with lust, and she wanted to take a step back in shock, but was once again embraced by Luo Feng. You can hide twice a time, can you still hide the third or fourth time? Be rational and explain it to him clearly, otherwise I don't know how much I will do to you. He just finished speaking and kissed her lips again. When she thought he wanted to go deeper, he bit hard on her red lips and dyed their color red. In this way, everyone knows that you are my woman, and no one will have any illusions about you. Luo Feng, why are you still humiliating me even though you already have Lin Xingro? She was aggrieved, and who could she find to complain to? Luo Feng's big hand was still pressed against her waist, chatting and saying, I twisted my waist pretty well last night, continue tonight. Luo Feng, I can't do it anymore. My body can't take it anymore. She blushed from being held back by Luo Feng's words, and Luo Feng was stunned before releasing his hand and speaking softly. Then take a 2-day break and settle down to be my woman. Stay in the villa and I won't miss your food and drink. You don't have to worry about going out to work. She looked at his face with a light smile, and the muscles at the corner of her mouth began to twitch. What about 5 years from now? Don't I have to take care of myself in 5 years? I want to. I have given birth to a son, my son's mother. Can I treat you unfairly? Are you just pretending to be fecal and not intelligent? After being scolded by him for no reason, Shen Ruyu's face turned pale and she took a step back. I didn't promise to have a child for you. You better not have such thoughts. My child won't give to Lin Xingro, she said. I said I was going to give it to her. It's clear that you had to take care of it yourself. Your brain is so stupid, how can you survive until now? Chapter 10. Luo Feng, you are really a crazy dog. You are listening at novel full.audio. Shen Ruyu looked at Luo Feng in confusion, but he just withdrew his gaze and said, "Change my clothes, and hurry up. Although you are an acquaintance, being late is not too good." Feeling disappointed by him, she walked up to the wardrobe, opened it, and then took out his dark shirt and suit. She walked up to Luo Feng and, like a little wife, put them on for him. "If you keep being so well behaved, I will also be gentle with you." She looked at Luo Feng without understanding, as if the love in his eyes was about to make her misunderstand. He always gives himself such a little elephant from time to time, making her think he also has feelings for him. But she knew it wasn't true, and if she fell into it again, she would only be hurt even more. "Often, if you don't love me, don't look at me like this anymore. I can't bear it." She turned around and wanted to leave. Luo Feng held her in his arms and lightly bit her earlobe. "As long as you're good, I'll love you." His words made her heart tremble, but she quickly sorted out her emotions and opened his big hand. "Can you make it clear to Lin Xingro? If not, don't give me those promises that cannot become true." "I don't care." Luo Feng silently looked at her back, whether she couldn't accept his love or didn't want it. He put on his suit jacket without thinking about himself, and his eyes turned cold and gloomy again, looking solemnly at the woman with her back to him. "Since you don't want it, then don't do it. It's just a money deal, change clothes." The expected answer didn't come, and Shen Ruyu didn't say much. She took out a goose yellow long dress and put it on, simply added makeup, and followed him out of the vacation house. At 7:30, they walked into the banquet hall of the Sea View Hotel and saw familiar faces. But unexpectedly, she saw someone who shouldn't have appeared here. She saw Jibai staring at them in the distance without taking her eyes off. She looked up angrily at Luo Feng and said, "Do you know that Jibai will come? Why didn't you tell me?" Luo Feng lowered his head and looked at her small face, with a proud smile on his lips. He held her in his arms with his big hand. "Are you allowed to sneak behind my back? Shen Ruyu, have you forgotten? What is your current identity?" As he spoke, he lowered his head and bit into her earlobe, like a couple's ears and hair rubbing against each other. Ji Bai's big hand clenched the wine glass in his hand, crossed the crowd, and walked towards them, his gaze fixed on Shen Ruyu's face. "Yuyu, what is your relationship with him? Is the news online true?" He didn't believe that such a simple Yuyu would be a vain woman, and he didn't believe that her partner was still Lin Xingro's fiancé. Shen Ruyu lowered her head and remained silent, while Luo Feng only pulled out a sneer and his big hand tightened. "What qualifications do you have to compete with me for? Money or emotions? Apart from money, has she ever conceived a child for me? Have you touched her fingers? Luo Feng, do you have to step on me to be happy? Is that all I have to do?" Luo Feng ignored her and continued to speak to Ji Bai. "Last night, she twisted her small waist and said many unpleasant things to me, just wanting me to give her more." Shen Ruyu felt ashamed and embarrassed. Her small hand hanging on her side had already clenched her fist, and her once rosy cheeks had lost their color. Ji Bai looked at her being wronged and felt even more uncomfortable in his heart. As he pulled her, she fell into his arms and could clearly hear his heartbeat. "Yuyu, what are you willing to let him trample on your self-esteem for?" "Money, I owe him money. My dad sold me to her and he took my household registration book for 3 billion yuan. Shen Ruyu finally met his face. Since she couldn't avoid it, she made it clear and drew clear boundaries to avoid Luo Feng hurting him. The current Luo Feng is no longer the same as before. Ji Bai remained silent for a few seconds and looked at Luo Feng. "Mr. Luo, I will repay her 3 billion yuan and give her household registration book to me," he said. Luo Feng chuckled lightly and put his slender hand into his pants pocket. His knowledgeable eyes turned to Shen Ruyu. "Come back on your own, or I'll drag you back. I'm afraid it won't look too good next." Upon hearing his threat, Shen Ruyu's body trembled, remembering his madness. She immediately withdrew and returned to Luo Feng's side, letting him hold on to her. I'm sorry, I accept your situation and I will solve it myself. Luo Feng hugged her waist and gave Ji Bai a sinister glance. Don't have any more fantasies about my woman, she can't do without me, he said. Ji Bai held the wine glass in his hand and watched helplessly as Shen Ruyu was taken away by him. Shen Ruyu struggled non-stop, but was still led by Luo Feng to the front of Ji Yanli and Song Chaobai. Song Chaobai couldn't bear to look anymore and pushed his glasses on the bridge of his nose. Luo Feng, don't be so rude to her. At least she's also a woman. You. Luo Feng clenched his hand tighter and sneered, she's not even afraid of stealing, what else am I afraid of? Ji Yanli shook his head helplessly. I really don't know what Luo Feng had in his mind, insisting on making their relationship so strained. Shen Ruyu angrily bit his arm, and Luo Feng lowered his head and looked at her with a gloomy expression. Shen Ruyu, are you a dog? You're a crazy dog, you're not afraid of being careful, you know. Just telling Ji Bai is like telling the whole world. Do you think you will ruin your reputation? So if you want to get you, of course no one will know that you are mine, he will keep it a secret for you. The air pressure around them became tense, and Shen Ruyu silently looked at the man in front of her. He was becoming increasingly annoying now. After attending the banquet, Luo Feng took her away overnight. The cramped space in the car made her even more suffocated. She opened the car window and let the breeze blow through her hair. I want to go out the day after tomorrow, she said calmly. He turned his head to look at Shen Ruyu. It was her birthday and he had already prepared everything to celebrate her birthday, but she wanted to celebrate with someone else. No, I've arranged everything for you to celebrate your birthday. After it's over, I'll let you go out and play for 2 days. Luo Feng's words made Shen Ruyu turn her head and carefully examine Luo Feng's face. She couldn't understand him anymore. You ruined my career and mercilessly tortured me, but now you tell me, you want to celebrate my birthday. Luo Feng, how many faces do you really have? Luo Feng closed his eyes in silence, leaned back in the seat to rest, and received no response. Shen Ruyu increasingly felt that this man was too easy to break down. In an instant, Luo Feng's phone rang, and Shen Ruyu lowered her head to take a look. The words Xing Ro were embedded in her eyes, and she sneered before looking out of the car window again. Tears involuntarily flowed into his eyes, and Luo Feng just hung up the phone and turned it off. I promise to make it clear to her that you will stay by my side obediently and compensate for the debts caused to me over the years. She turned her head skeptically and looked at Luo Feng, her eyes seeming to distrust him. After all, he had wanted to marry Lin Xingro before, how could he make it clear now? We still need to break up.